Kendal, really excited to have you here today for Maryville Connects. This month in December is a special month of giving and sharing, and I was really delighted when we invited our two guests that are here this evening to talk about the good work that they're doing here in Chicago. So we welcome you to learn and to get some information as we talk about a wonderful program here in Chicago through Rush Hospital with our Dr. Gina Lowell and Emily Cole. So to begin with, I just wanted to ask Dr. Gina Cole from Rush Hospital if you could share a little bit about yourself and your role with this project.
Sure, absolutely. I'm Gina Lowell. I'm a pediatrician at Rush. I'm also the Director of Community Health for Pediatrics. And starting about, 6 or 7 years ago, we began really trying to connect our pregnant and parenting families to home visiting and doula programs in the community. There is a whole background as to why it was that we wished to do this, wished to do better for our families that we were serving at Rush. And through that process, we met folks from Community Organizing Family Issues, and we'll probably tell a little more of the story from there. But Emily, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Emily Cole. I'm a lead organizer with Community Organizing and Family Issues, or COFI. And COFI, back before the pandemic, started recognizing that maternal health and mental health were some really important issues of our parents. So COFI is an organization, a statewide organization of Black and brown parent leaders in Chicago, as well as across the state in Aurora, Elgin, Evanston, and East St. Louis. And so really on the west side of Chicago, parents started getting energized about wanting to work. And so we had the opportunity to partner with Rush and with others to start looking at how we could build a better system for our families.
You know, one of the things that we were talking about is that this is going on for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And so I think that recognizing that strength in history of this building and that it is statewide is really instrumental in how we are kind of laser focusing on the fact that as a parent with children, how you get the support that you need so you could really be thriving. And it seems to me like COFI, which really is looking at, it's about parent voices, but it goes beyond just talking. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could talk a little bit about it's beyond just talking,
yes.
if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So COFI's mission, we work for Black and brown parents and their communities to first become leaders in their own lives. They recognize that they are leaders in their own lives, that they're already leaders in their families, and that's something that a lot of times in systems, we don't see parents as leaders. We see parents as consumers or as patients, but not as someone that has a lot of agency, has ideas, that they have abilities to create new systems that a lot of folks have not even thought of. And so that is something that COFI has worked on for for 30 years, as you mentioned, and really seeing parents as having the solutions. And a lot of times in systems, parents are seen as bringing problems, or our focus is on children. But really seeing parents as the first teachers, parents as the first healthcare professionals, the first providers in a child's life. And so in order to support children, you have to support parents. And the healthier that parents are going to be, the healthier their children are going to be. And so that's been the approach, and that parents are also able to reach other parents in ways that often systems are not able to for so many reasons. And so when we, as a collective, as a community, support other parents, that builds the systems that we need to thrive.
Well, and I'm thinking about I think about as parents when children are in school or even prior to school, who are they interacting with? Is it the next door neighbor, or is it at the local park district in Chicago, or do they have their child signed up for a swim class, or all these incidental moments of when you're meeting with a parent, or maybe not. Maybe there's reasons why it's hard to get overly connected, if you will, because of work schedules, or there's an illness in the family with another family member, and it's hard to sort of schedule, certain classes that you want to do. I just remember with my kids when they were little, I really wanted them to do swim class, but it never happened because of the way when the class was and when I was available. And so, but that can be the difference, or meeting a family or a parent at a summer camp, and you incidentally start having a conversation, and you learn a lot.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is really sort of setting up these opportunities to engage at different times in a child's development, and really for a parent too, to allow them to get to know more resources in the city, or really in the state. I shouldn't just pick on the city.
I think that's what we were really challenged with several years ago, was thinking about what is that system of care that's around our pregnant and parenting families. We're seeing it only from the healthcare standpoint, but we're just a very small part of the ecosystem of care around parents with young children. And when you take your example, like trouble getting your child to a swim class, right? Now imagine that for all those other points of care, right? That I really wanted my child to make it to their doctor's appointment, but here were all those barriers. I really wanted my child to be able to get evaluated by early intervention, but here were all those barriers. And who can inform us about those barriers, right? Who best to inform us but parents, right? And so you talked about parents being the first teacher, first healthcare provider, the first everything and most important in the child's life, in our children's and communities' lives. But also parents as partners was something that became very big for us as we started thinking about how can we help support our parents from our West Side community areas in having a system of care that works for all families, not just some families, not just families who maybe have a bit more resources than others, but all families who really can benefit from the system of support that is built for pregnant and parenting families and that exists out there. Home visiting and doula programs, early learning programs, mental and behavioral health programs, and then healthcare, right? And so when we started this work to connect our families to services, we learned so much in the first couple of years, right? We learned very much that, like I mentioned, the system was built for all families, but was missing the mark, right? Like time and again, where it worked well for some, but not all. We learned that navigation was a really important piece to helping families make sense of the system of care around them. And then we learned that the services that exist may or may not be what we call relational in their approach, right? And so relational health or relational approaches really have to do with putting and valuing the relationship between parents and children first and foremost, and then the relationship between providers and parents as a reflection of what we hope a safe, stable, nurturing relationship can look like and be for between parents and children, but then between families and their communities, and then between communities and the systems that support them. So it really was this very, concentric circle type of approach. And we hoped to, through partnering with Kofi, come into this system of care approach by going after all those different areas: navigation support, strengthening systems of care, strengthening the different parts of the systems of care through evidence-based trainings and supports, and then also recognizing that unmet social needs plays a huge role in barriers to care for our families.
Yeah, and I, just thinking about here we are in the thick of winter and the holidays come upon us, and, just the weather, can be a game changer in terms of, you know, hats and gloves, something as simple as that can be sometimes not simple, or, you know, the heat at a certain level so we don't have broken pipes, to, you know, can we go to the Christmas party at the school? Can we get there? You know, is there transportation? You know, can I reach out to, you know, a family member or another parent of the school, and we can participate in something like that? I think when you talk about, you know, relationships, it's about knowing somebody is going to respond to you, and that you can be able to trust. You know, that when you reach out, that there's some responsiveness. And I think, Gina, you're sort of talking about sometimes, you know, we're in this age of now AI, and you make a phone call to a place that you think you're going to speak to somebody, and you know, those interactions are drastically changing as we speak. Where it used to be a recorder, now it's a robot, and you know, there's a chat, and you know, being able to just think about what you want to ask and who do you need to talk to. Like you were talking about the navigation, I think having, you know, wonderful supports that can, a parent can say, yeah, you know what, I kind of went through that, and this is how I worked around it, or if you call this number. You know, I don't know, maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of resources, but it's very challenging oftentimes to get through them, get through to them because of all those things that you mentioned. And I think that one of the things that we found really helpful had first been the navigation through Rush, where we've had a patient navigator that has an understanding of all these different resources, and that they're not just one specific kind of resources, right? That often families need multiple different resources. That folks that are looking for, you know, early intervention resources for their children are also looking for rental assistance, and also might be looking for job training, and also might be looking for mental health care for themselves. And how are they able to do that all in one place? And we have some people that are really well versed in all of those resources, so people aren't having to do all of this individual work, which really can be like a part-time job. It's a lot to track down all of those different things. And then I think also having parents that are trained we've had successfully trained parents to become community healers. And so we have parent leaders who are already leaders in their schools, in their communities. They have gone through extensive trainings to understand how to support other parents, to create spaces for parents to be able to share their stories, and then to also connect them to other resources. Because there are some parents that, you know, are really on it and working through to get through different mental health services. There's some parents that are stuck on waiting lists for mental health services. And then there's other parents that aren't necessarily interested in mental health care for themselves, going into therapy. But what they're really looking for is a place where they feel like they are valued, where they're heard, where they can share themselves without having to fear of being judged. And that's really what parents are able to provide for themselves. And creating that space, and also creating that space in schools where parents already are. And we've had a lot of really great success with people that are already in the schools coming to a space where they're able to share. And right now, you know, everything going on in Chicago, that's something that has been really needed and really successful.
Well, and you know, what I really appreciate about how important this is that, you know, our Surgeon General last year put out a report about, well, and the year before, there were two really pivotal reports, one of which is the epidemic of loneliness, and then the second one was specifically surrounding parental stress. And, you know, that was put out there, but the question becomes, what type of programs and what type of real tangible connections do we make so we can really think about how we are going to decrease stress with recognizing where we are in terms of just raising a family. Even under the best of circumstances, it's tough stuff.
Yeah.
So I was very appreciative that they put something in writing acknowledging that and recognizing that, hey, you know, programs like yours are trying to be solution-based and really making it happen, because anybody in isolation, life will start to become very complicated and can get very scary. And particularly when you're trying to get support for somebody in your family. And so what you've now are deepening the work in things like parent cafes in the community, the healing circles, and there was one other program. I'm forgetting the name now.
There's quite a few that we've tried
Yeah.
to implement in terms of trainings for parents as well as providers who are serving pregnant and parenting families. But what you're getting at there with the isolation as well as parental stress has to do with trauma, right? Relational health is a reframing of trauma-informed care. Hurt, trauma happens in relationships, and so healing has to happen in relationships. When you think about what some of those earliest traumas are, it has to do with the idea that a helper wasn't helping. Someone who was identified as a helper in that child's life, in that parent's life, in that community's world, did not help when help was needed. And that's one of the most fundamental ruptures that can happen between two people, within a family, within a community, and even among systems. So when it comes to repairing those ruptures, right, we really want to make sure that whatever we do is happening in relationship with each other in order to repair that trust that was broken. The more helpers don't help, the more trust erodes. The more helpers show up as helping, the more you can rebuild that trust. And so there's a few things. Community healers honestly came out of Kofi, number one, first and foremost. But the parents who participate with us in Bridges, this partnership between ourselves and Kofi, have been through a number of other trainings. So a Circle of Security has been one of them, and that's a very attachment-focused training that really helps parents understand their children's behaviors as a manifestation of their needs, basically. And once you can sort of reframe and see a child's behaviors, misbehaviors, positive, negative, whatever it is, as a representation of their needs, it just changes the way that you're going to be with your child, right? But that goes for the way we interact with families and each other as well. So Circle of Security has been really a wonderful training for us to reframe how we see each other in relationship. And then a couple of other trainings that Kofi parents have been through, Survivor Mom's Companion, as well, which is like a psychoeducation and skill building intervention for pregnant and parenting, pregnant and postpartum people. And then perinatal net, so narrative exposure therapy is another training that many Kofi parents as well as professionals have been through to help pregnant and parenting families with trauma they've experienced and making sense of that trauma. So it's actually a treatment for PTSD in the perinatal period. All of these things, honestly, have fed into, I think, if I can say, the way community healers is approaching their work with families. And the reason I say that is because, all those trainings, they have things you're supposed to do and ways you're supposed to teach and how you're supposed to evaluate. And our parents came back to us and said, we can take this all and turn it into the Kofi way of doing this. And that's really when transformation happens. There's a manualized thing that, of course, has value and can be evidence-based. And then there's a transformational way with these trainings. And our job, what we're seeing as part of our job now, is to evaluate that. How does an intervention like Community Healers that has taken into account all of these relational approaches and taken it to families with the power of parents leading the way, how does that impact families in our communities? And so that's something we're really excited about actually over the next few years. It's doing a very kind of intentional job of carefully evaluating the stories that come out of community healers so that we can lift it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I think when we're talking about stories, how do we learn from our elders and others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We learn by them being able to share something that was very important to them. And that can look a lot of different ways. And, Dr. Gina, I'm just imagining the way you describe this, even in your role as a pediatrician, that you have all this wonderful health knowledge that we really need you to have to keep our children healthy. But then you have the parents who walk into the room, and yes, there might be a sniffly nose and something else, eczema. I don't know, I'm just making up like something you might experience. But then there are some other things that come through in those conversations that then you're now pivoting to that.
Absolutely. I think a lot of that really frames the way that we ought to and see parents in terms of their role in their children's life, which is parents are the expert in their children's life. You're right. I've got expertise in, a handful of areas or whatnot. That parent is the number one expert in their child's life. And if I'm not partnering and listening to them, that's on me, right? How could I not do that? That's the expert in this child's life. And centering that, I think, is so important when it comes to caring for our families.
And I think to the point of learning from elders as well, I think, and speaking to this, parental stress, I think one of the things that parents and people in general can do is to join an organization to organize. Because I think that, we have a lot of programs which are 6-week, 8-week programs, and you start to build relationships in those spaces. And I think we're always thinking about what happens after that. What happens to those relationships? People continue those, but I think the beautiful thing about organizing, whether it's within Kofi or other organizations, is that it's something that's multi-generational, that there are parents that started many years ago. And the learning is continuous, and we continue to contribute to each other in community and work for our communities, for our families over the years. And that's one of the things that I think can also help us feel connected and change some of the policies and the systems that are affecting our generation, the generations that are going to come.
Well, and we want to, it's pretty clear to me that, the message is that you're not alone.
Yes. Yeah.
And that there is what you're describing is really creating a circle of support. Even before babies, still in tummy and still taking in the world, but in a different way. And so how do we best allow families to figure out how do you make those connections? So, walking alongside. I mean, I think about the fact of us being here together. We're walking alongside how we're all trying to figure it out. Not one of us has the answers. And, I'm just kind of curious, is there any good way for somebody who might be watching how to get involved with Kofi?
Yeah, so our the way that folks can get involved is we have a regular self, family, and team training. So if you want to learn how your leadership can support yourself, your family, that's our point of entry. We have some trainings that are going on that just started that folks are welcome to come into, and we regularly have those in person and sometimes online as well for both if you're a parent and want to participate, or if you're on the provider side as well and want to understand how to work with parents and how to think about bringing a training to your own organization. So you can check those out at Kofi's website, which are it's kofiponline.org. Yes.
So that's www.cofi.org.
COFI online, ONILNINE.org.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to ask you to do that one more time.
That's Kofi, COFI, online, ONLINE.org.
Okay.
And if you're an agency that is interested in getting some trainings through our Bridges network, such as in Perinatal Net, you're supporting pregnant and parenting families, you want to learn more or train more, you can go to our website at Rush. It's Bridges. Just Google Bridges at Rush, and you'll find our website. It's updated, and you'll have find out the different ways that you can get connected and involved.
Yeah, you have a whole group that is really kind of nurturing and building this up and within both spaces. And I just really strongly recommend if you're somebody who is just really curious about being connected to families with young children, this is a great way to begin that exchange with others, so that way you can get information. And sometimes, you may be at a point in your life where you're moving on, or there's your children are getting older, but we also have other people in our families, or you might know other parents in the school, and giving them those resources to make a call can really make a difference. So we're going to be wrapping up here in a minute, and I just really can't thank you both enough for coming today. This is an important time of the year as we gather together as families and share information and be a support, and hopefully that it is a time of of thanks as how we come together as a family and as a community, and keep us positive and strong as we navigate some complicated things.
Yeah.
So thank you both
Thank
very
you.
much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
And thank you again for joining us for our 2025 Maryville Connects. We look forward to seeing you next year.